Content warnings for this episode include depression, divorce, dysphoria, misgendering, and mental health. Welcome to GenderMeowster Podcast Network. Genderful is a talk show featuring non-binary and trans folks discussing various topics and special interests. We kindly remind our listeners that no person is a monolith of identities. All opinions are the speaker's own. This show airs live on Twitch at twitch.tv/GenderMeowster, and VODs with show notes can also be found on YouTube. So hi everyone, I'm GenderMeowster. I use they them pronouns. I'm the host of Genderful, and I will let my wonderful, illustrious guests introduce themselves today.
I would hardly call myself illustrious, but thank you so much for having me, Meowster. Hi.
Hi.
My name's Mimi.
Yeah, what are your pronouns?
They are she, her, and they, them. I go by both. I am non-binary and I am transgender.
Yeah.
There's also just so many other, descriptive words that come into play, but those are really the two that you get up front. And everything else is like, oh, I'll reveal that to you in time, once I warm up.
Yeah, that's fair. I love that you are a non-binary trans feminine person. I haven't had too many non-binary trans femme people on the show. I've had a lot of non-binary trans masc people. So it's cool to have you here and talk about all the things.
Thanks.
So, oh my gosh, there's so many things to talk about. Maybe let's start with, I met you through the Transverse. And the first time we met, we had like a Zoom call. It was like a cold call. Our friend Emily was like, hey, you should talk to Mimi about this idea you have. And I was like, okay. So we're on a call and you're just like vibing with a coffee. And I was like also vibing with a coffee. And I was like, we're going to get along fine. We both love coffee. It'll be great.
Oh, absolutely. And you've got, a lovely kind of life, similar to mine in that you're constantly involved with animals. Mm-hmm. And I fell in love with the kittens that you recently adopted. And,
yeah, they're so cute.
It's great that you've got your cat sidekick.
Yes.
Mine is currently walled off
today.
Behind this. What's that?
I said I don't have any furry co-host today, but you have a furry co-host.
He's on the other side of this wall. I unfortunately walled him off here.
It's like your stage
and I might
manager.
Actually drop it at some point during the show to kind of show off my nerdy background, especially once we get into talking a little bit more about the storytelling stuff.
I love that so much. So we'd like to start the show off with talking a little bit about your gender history and sort of how you got started in life, and then we talk about your special interest. And so today's special interest topic is about writing and storytelling. And we have a copious quantity of questions about that because, of course, who else is going to write a lot of questions than a writer?
It seemed perfect, right?
It's very exciting. I love it. So what are some things that you can trace back to your youth that indicated you might be trans or non-binary or gender diverse one day?
Yeah. A whole lot of gender going on up in here. And that happened from a very early on age. I think, a lot of the people that we talk about or talk to through the Transverse, a lot of us had our sort of awakening very early on in life. Not necessarily an egg cracking, but definitely the noticing that things weren't right, like either with your body or with your gender, whatever it may be. And for me, it definitely started around the kindergarten age, around the time kids start to notice the differences between boys and girls. And I can even remember like probably one of my biggest gender discovery awakening moments. Because when I was about 5 years old, and this was in 1992 or 93, I will say, my parents had the brilliant idea to take us to a movie. And the movie that they took us to see in the theater was Ace Ventura Pet Detective.
Ooh.
And if you're familiar with the movie, great. You probably have opinions. If you're not, let me just tell you that a central plot point revolved around a trans character, and they are not at all portrayed in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just sort of how the 90s were.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't very kind to transgender people. They didn't even have the right terminology. Um, and they were often portrayed as jokes or outright bad guys. So when I viewed Ace Ventura for the first time, and many, many times after that, I loved the movie, and I still do, despite its many flaws. Um, the thing that stuck out to me the most was that there was a character who looked very, very manly and masculine, and then became such a beautiful woman. And even though it was totally fictional, and they were portrayed as the villain of the movie, that part never interested me. The part that was really interesting was that somebody could go from one extreme end of masculine to the other opposite extreme of feminism.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that was what immediately stuck with me in my mind. And that's kind of the thought that I built on for the rest of my life, and expanded on it with other films and stuff. A lot of my early knowledge about transgenderism or anything gender related, frankly, came from media. It was from movies, it was from TV shows, and a lot of it was just really poor or mixed information.
Mm-hmm.
So, we weren't set up the best as far as proper education and information goes back then. And I wouldn't really discover what it even means to be transgender until probably the time I was in or out of college. So, my very early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really the time that it kind of started building up and becoming more of a problem. For a lot of my youth, I was able to just sort of wonder about it and do as I would, kind of experimenting with the cross dressing whenever I happened across my sister's or a cousin's articles
Mm-hmm.
of clothing. And that was my happy time. That was my good place. And it was very private. I was very embarrassed about that, as many or most of us are, because we were always made to feel like that was something wrong or bad that we shouldn't be
Mm-hmm.
doing. And so you grow up with all these mixed messages. It really makes it hard to know what's the right thing to do. And that's why I tried sort of perpetuating the cis male hetero lifestyle for so long. I
Right.
really lacked good support and information early on,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a definite delay to the Mimi that you see here before you today.
Yeah. Before I ask about how you got to where you are today, I have a bonus question. Did you have a favorite like cross-dressing outfit or moment or experience, like a moment that was just so wonderful and euphoric?
uh, you know the sad truth is no, not really, because it
Mm-hmm.
was always kept so private.
Mm-hmm.
I do recall, early enough on in my life, like from that 5 to 7 age range, my sister and her friends would like delight in dressing up her brother as a girl, and it was fun, and we all
Mm-hmm.
just we were kids and we had fun with it. It wasn't until after that sort of range where the gender differences were like really hard cut, that it became a thing of embarrassment that I had to hide.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as like really euphoric items go, it was always kind of just any like dresses or underwear, basically,
Yeah.
because those were the items that were most different from what I was normally getting to wear. And I was one of those sad kids that my dad dressed me like from kindergarten till I don't even
Oh,
know, fifth
yeah.
grade. And he put
Mm-hmm.
me in big baggy sweatpants and like sweaters
Mm-hmm.
every day.
Mm-hmm. It's like, here, we'll get you started on the dysphoria hoodie early.
Yeah, totally.
And you're
The
like, I just want
dysphoria
to be in the
uniform,
spinny dress. Dress go spinny. Well,
sweatpants do not.
yeah, sweatpants totally don't do spinny. It's true. They do comfy, but if you're not going for that, if you want to be fancy and spinny, you got to get something else. So, how has your relationship to gender evolved over time? Like, you're this out non binary adult today who's also trans identified. And how did you go from, trying on things in a closet or a room when your family wasn't around to being a well adjusted adult human being?
It's been quite the journey, honestly. At times, I feel like I am, uh, to borrow a video game term, I feel I'm speed running life now.
Hmm.
Since 2020, I started my speed run at just transitioning and reestablishing myself. Um, I picked storytelling as my topic that we would talk about a bit because I had always had this idea that I was going to be some sort of writer slash entertainer.
Hmm.
Um, and wouldn't you know, I was having the darndest time trying to get that established um, as my old identity. I wasn't really digging, being that guy, promoting the works of that guy. I didn't feel
Mm.
like people cared about anything from that guy. And when I began my transition, um, I one of my favorite things to do now, by the way, is the before and after comparison pictures,
Oh, yeah,
because my
totally.
change, I think, is pretty on the drastic side of things.
Hmm.
Um, I started my transition weighing about 230 pounds,
Wow.
and today I weigh 165.
Hmm.
So that's a very noticeable difference in size and shape.
Yeah.
Um,
And do you think part of
and
that has to do with just being happier and so your relationship to food has evolved because you have less dysphoria, or why
oh,
do you think that
immensely.
is? Yeah.
I had a very unhealthy relationship with food and eating prior
Hmm.
to transitioning. I it's not particularly interesting. I mean, the methods that I employed to lose the weight, it was just like eat slightly less and exercise more,
Hmm.
and hormones probably played some role in all of that. I don't know. Um, but I feel like 10 billion% better. That's a factual statistical number, by the way.
I love that.
That than I did prior. I have more energy and more motivation to socialize, and just a whole newfound love and lease on life
Hmm.
that was lacking for so many years prior.
Yeah.
Um, so your question was just like about my gender overall in general here, but to go into the situation before a little bit,
Hmm.
I was living as a married man for a number of years, 6 to 8, prior to transitioning. And the less said about that, the better. But it was not a healthy marriage, and things were not going well. And we had problems on both sides. Um, Fine people on both sides, but problems. And so my marriage really couldn't be saved. And the only way out that I saw that was viable was through transitioning and making myself a better person. And I wanted to do that not only for myself, but for my two kids. I have two daughters, ages 5 and 2, and they are just the greatest thing about my life. They are my number one reason for living now.
Aw.
And I can't imagine, a world without them. And then I run into a lot of people would say, or do say, I wish I would have transitioned long ago, years ago. I would have
Mhm.
transitioned so long ago if I could have. And that may be true for me to a certain extent, but in saying that, I would undo sort of my kids, and that wouldn't make me happy at all. So it's it's a bizarre situation in which I knew that I kind of had to go through this big ordeal of suffering as well as self-discovery to be this better version of myself that I always wanted to be. Um, and that whole story I'm telling in my podcast, which is a semi autobiographical narrative audio drama. It's called MoreThanMimi, and it is currently on Spotify as well as my own YouTube channel, which I'm not really even going to bother to promote. But the latest and greatest and best version that you should watch and or listen to is hosted on the Transverse YouTube channel. And if you're a person who is either transitioning or has transitioned or is thinking about transitioning, and or someone who is a parent or divorced or going through a divorce, um, I really hope my story helps people like that. That's who I'm making it for. That's why I'm sharing these details.
Yeah.
Um, there's a lot of us that go through these situations, and nobody transitions the same. There's a lot of the same elements that go into our stories, but everyone is vastly different. And I just want to hit those couple of brackets of people and see if my story can resonate and help them in some way.
Yeah. I had the joy and delight of getting to see More Than Mimi. Um, the first episode when it aired on the Transverse, and I love what you've done with the visual medium and adding in like pictures that are like super artistic and it's a visual podcast that is truly meant to be seen, like, and enjoyed in that medium. So it'd be a great thing, folks, for you to throw up on your TV and listen to and look over occasionally while you're doing other things in your house, like folding your kids' laundry or making dinner, or probably not mowing the lawn, but giving your cats medicine, whatever.
You could absolutely listen to the podcast version. And you know what? Everything that you said has made me so happy just now because it was always meant to be an audio only podcast.
Yeah,
The visual aspect of it was totally something that I just conceived on the fly
it was
and
so
made for the
cool.
transfers after kind of partnering with them. So
Yeah,
it was
I
sort of a
haven't seen
beautiful
content
fluke.
like that very often. Like it's sort of a rare bird to find. I mean, you have voice acting in the show. You have like it's written like a script, right? It's not just a talk show like this. It's like, it's got more to it than that. And I really enjoy all the effort and creativity that went into making that show. And I love that's autobiographical too.
Yeah, semi-autobiographical. I had to change some names, and probably some of the time frame details are going to be a little fast and loose,
Yeah. So,
just because of my
you got to
faulty brain.
protect the guilty, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
for the most part.
Well, how did you get into writing? Like, you are very capable of making fun things. And also, I remembered a question I want to ask before that, because we just had Mother's Day yesterday, and you're a parent. Do you like to celebrate Mother's Day or Father's Day or non binary Parents' Day or some combination of those, and why?
I think gendered holidays are just kind of stupid overall, but I will say that the sentiment that goes with it it's, celebrating mothers. That's fine. That's cool. People are mothers. I get that. I'm a mother, or I identify as one. And I actually had an unexpectedly fantastic Mother's Day, because of my girlfriend taking me out and just showing me a really lovely time. I wasn't able to be with my kids on Mother's Day. They went to other mother,
Mm-hmm.
and that really kind of weighs on me. The days that I have to take them back because we share visitation,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't get to see them as much as I would like.
Yeah.
It's not an even split,
Mm-hmm.
and I do struggle with some depression, occasionally, and especially on the days where I'm with them and then not with them.
Yeah.
But one really, really, really cool note about Mother's Day is that this year, my dad sent me a Mother's Day card for the first
Oh,
time ever
that's really
since
cool.
coming out back in 2020.
I love that.
And I honestly, I never thought that I would see that from him.
Yeah.
And so it like, I opened it up and kind of shock hit me of what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I just cried.
Yeah. Oh, that's so touching. So my wife is also a parent of children and
Mhm.
trans, and she actually celebrates Father's Day. So she's dad, she, her. So the kids call her
Yeah.
dad, and it's interesting. I hear different gender diverse people pick different days to celebrate with their kids. So it's not all like all the trans women celebrate Father's Day or all the trans men celebrate Mother's Day or whatever. It's a mix of things. So
Mhm.
for a minute I was thinking it'd be cool if we celebrated like non-binary parents day for me, because I didn't birth the children or contribute to the creating of them physically, but I do parent them regularly. And
Well, it really seems like there should be a parent slash guardian day.
there's a non-binary parents day. I think it's like in November or something. And so it's not in the season of like, Mother's and Father's Day is like a month apart or whatever. And
November, the most
it's
non-binary of months.
it's just like, I don't know, because the overall culture doesn't really acknowledge that day as a day. My wife has decided we can share Father's Day, so that I can be Jack Dad and she can be dad to the kids. So
Oh, that's
sometimes the
awesome.
kids will call me Jack Dad or Jad, which is Jack and Dad smushed together into a three-letter word. Um, so anyways, so they have their dad's house, which is our house, and their mom's house, which is their other house, because their mom is now a lesbian married to a woman.
Man,
So it's
that's
like
awesome.
it's our houses are so queer. We're just so gay. It's awesome.
This is the
Anyways,
future liberals want.
so I'm non-binary. I don't identify as a man, but I don't know. There's just like energy and attention around like Father's Day that there isn't around non-binary Parents Day. So if someone wishes me a happy non-binary Parents Day, I'll be like totally delighted. But like a couple people sent my wife Happy Mother's Day messages, which is like very thoughtful of them. But what actually would be even more meaningful to her is to get a Happy Father's Day message, because she,
Oh,
it was hard for her to father kids. Like it was a challenge, and she signed up for it and did it on purpose. And anyway, so yeah,
yeah.
enough about that probably. But it's just cool that I'm talking to a fellow like non-binary trans parent the day after like Gender Parent Day, number one.
Totally. And you know what? I actually do still, on our parenting time calendar, I get Father's Day with
Yeah,
my kid.
that's
So
good.
it's like I'll still celebrate it.
Yeah,
Totally.
yeah. Yeah, I thought it was generous of my spouse to share Father's Day. I actually proposed to her on Father's Day.
Oh, cute.
Yeah, that's a story for another time, though. How did you get into writing and storytelling? Getting us back on track. How did you start with the putting the pen to paper thing?
Wow. That also began at a very early age. And it didn't actually start with pen and paper, right?
Hmm.
It started with this thing called a typewriter that people used to have in their homes. Um, it was very much like a keyboard, but not connected to a computer. And the love of writing didn't start until the love of reading started. So that all began, in the elementary school years, uh, way back in the Scholastic Book Fair days.
Mhm.
I was addicted to Goosebumps books. That was
Nice.
like the hook.
Yeah,
Um,
those were fun.
and then the Animorphs book series is the other huge, like, fundamental to my core being series that hooked me from a young age, because it is deceivingly not a children's story. It's it's a story about war and the atrocities that war and death and all of that stuff brings,
Hmm.
and the toll that it takes on people who fight, and also turning into animals. So
Transforming.
that was where my love of like real storytelling started, in this sort of episodic short format.
Hmm.
And then from there, I like started testing my chops in writing stories. And what I would do was I was really into like story-based RPG video games. Like my favorite growing up was always Final Fantasy 3 and Chrono Trigger on the Super Nintendo.
Nice.
And I would start by writing like almost a fan fiction version of the video game that I was playing. So the very first foray of mine into storytelling was like converting the story of Chrono Trigger into, the typings of whatever I was, 9-year-old kid. And it was probably pretty bad, and I didn't save any of it. But that's where I really started to kind of play with the idea of actually putting words on page.
Hmm.
And I continued my love of reading books all throughout high school. It kind of dipped a little bit once I hit college and started getting into like dating and other things. Um, but I was pretty set early on that I was going to write a series, like a long format series.
Hmm.
And I remember like developing a whole world that was my original creation. And the intent was to write a series that started out as all of the plot details that I had thought of, I was going to fit into 3 books.
Nice.
Um, so I was already overly ambitious, right? And then as it developed and I thought about it more, I was like, okay, well, now I want to tell the length of story that I want to tell is going to fit into 6 books. The number increased.
Hmm.
And then it got to an eventual point where I was like, well, maybe I could tell the whole story that I want to tell in 10 books. Um, and I didn't actually start writing this story that I'd spent so long thinking about until after college graduation.
Hmm.
And I had the idea that I'm gonna be an author. That's my life plan. Uh, and I can go ahead and show you because I have them right here. Here's one of them.
Ooh.
This is the first book in
Ooh.
my series. It's
Look at
called
that
Devil Ash
cool
Days.
Look at that cool cover. Could you describe the cover to folks listening later? Is that a dragon?
Oh, totally. So the cover art, this is actually the third version of the cover art that I had commissioned from a fantastic artist named Nadia Ezerson. And it's my main character Ash, who is kind of riding on the back of a dragon. It's actually a demon dragon. These characters are devils that live in hell and fight demons. That's what the whole series is about. And the main protagonist there, his name is Ash, and that's why this series is called Devil Ash. Um, and he's about to slay some dragons here, and you got the other side characters kind of flying off in the background. There's another character down there. They're devils, and they of course have wings and fly, and They all have the ability to shoot fireballs as well.
Awesome. I love
So
that.
I ended up
How many of
writing.
your 10 books did you write slash publish?
Okay, so I wrote this first one back in 2012. It's a thick book, by the way.
Yeah, it is.
I
What is
have
that? 300, 400 pages?
in total
384. That's my guess.
316.
Oh, I did it. Okay.
316 pages on this
Wow.
guy. This came out in 2012, and I self-published through Amazon, which
Nice.
is really simple. Actually, they make the process really easy. Um, and I set the sales point really low, like ridiculously low, like 99 cents
Oh,
low.
wow. Nice.
And as it turns out, just based on like tags and the subject matter of like angels, demons, heaven, hell, that kind of thing, people search that a lot on Amazon. And so I got lots and lots of sales, probably for that reason alone.
Wow.
Um, so the first book did pretty well for an author's first time book.
Yeah.
Um, well enough that I went on to book number two. Oh, get that there without the glare. Uh, the first one was called Devil Ash Days. This one is called Devil Ash Deceit. And the front cover features my main character, Ash, and the other two, his kind of cohorts or sidekicks, teammates. That's Shiva is the daughter of Satan and the princess
Nice.
of hell. And then this gentleman over here with the glowy hand is his name is Aura the Death Toucher. And he has a very special cursed hand that can pull the soul out of any foe he fights. And then there's some really menacing figures in the background here. These are all kind of the villains of the story. And all of these books, by the way, are still available on Amazon today. And we'll go a little bit into kind of why I stopped writing this series.
Mm.
But second one came out, great reviews. Some of these reviews I still read from time to time just because they're like so inspiring to me. Um, and I ended up writing the third book as well, which unfortunately I never got around to making a physical copy. I can't hold that up here for the camera.
Mm-hmm.
Such great TV that is. But that one's available as an ebook. All right.
Nice.
And that was the final kind of hurrah for the Devil Ash series.
Mm-hmm.
So I got Devil Ash Days, Devil Ash Deceit, and Devil Ash Disarray out the door. Devil Ash 4 Departure, that's what it was called. I started to write, and then this whole life and transition and divorce stuff just slammed me, you know, and I lost a lot of that creative, motivated spark of my love of writing.
Yeah.
And, you know, it got to the point where I was dealing with such heavy things in my personal life that I was just drained. I was swamped. I, you know, would sit down to try and write something creative about a couple of devil kids goofing off in hell and fighting some demons, and was not in a great mental state to do that anymore.
Yeah.
And now I'm in this weird position of like, should I go back to the series and, you know, pick it back up and start cranking out some more books? Or are there better things that I could be putting my time and energy and efforts into and other stories to tell? Like, for instance, MoreThanMimi, which is, for all intents and purposes, the main writing project that I have now that I'm focusing on. And the goal after it being a podcast and being a show is to compile the scripts for all the episodes into one kind of lump book that I will then go on to sell on Amazon or self-publish.
Nice.
And yeah, you know, I've always felt sort of guilty was like, I want to label myself as a writer and an author, and to some degree, I technically can because I've done it, as you just saw. I have the physical proof.
Yeah, you have done it. That's a strenuous process that a lot of people write it and then they don't edit it or publish it. So,
Hmm.
you got it all the way into a physical thing you can hold in your hand and show off to people, and other people have paid you money for. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I the really cool thing about that is I was just looking at my statistics from Amazon, and I found out that in total, the amount of royalties I've made off of my series, Devil Ash, has brought me about $7,000.
Wow. That's
Just
pretty cool.
ballparking. That was like, wow, I didn't even realize. And when you consider that every one of those sales was 99 cents, that's big numbers.
Yeah. That's a
Um,
lot of people that have.
buying that. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's like 7,000 sales.
Yeah, you're right. In fact, I still check my uh, mail from time to time, my mailbox, and I get letters or yeah, letters from Amazon, and I'm like, what the hell is this? And I open it up, and it's like a check from Amazon for like $200,
Nice.
and I get
20
these
people bought your
quarterly
book.
because
Nice.
my books are a part of the Amazon Kindle lending library, which is apparently a service that you can just sign up for if you're self-publishing through them.
Hmm.
So people are able to like digitally rent and or trade my books.
Oh, cool.
Um, and because of that, I get these royalties. I'm part of this club. So like quarterly, I'll just be reminded like, oh yeah, Amazon just sent me some money. Sweet.
That's so awesome. I love that it all worked out that way. Um, I'm curious what would happen if you started writing like trans characters into your series now that you've gone through this big life transition. And what if, like, the explanation to all the people that have enjoyed your book so far is like, I got real trans, so here you go. Here's some non binary characters, some trans characters. We're just,
So
beefing up the
here's
diversity in the books a little bit extra.
here's a funny thing about that.
Yeah.
Uh, in the third book, which was the last one that I wrote and published, it's on Amazon right now. There is a trans character that I introduced,
Nice.
but I didn't make any mention. There's no reveal of that or anything. That's coming in the next book, book 4, the revelation that this character is actually trans. And this was a character that I was writing pre my own transition. Um, so in a weird way, it was like, well, I could keep writing and reveal that this character is trans, or I can just quit and do my own transition.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So
I
if
mean,
book 4 ever gets done and out the door, there will be a trans character and
nice.
representation in
Yeah.
hell.
Nice. I love it. Do you have any other stories that you started writing in the past but couldn't finish for some reason?
Let's see. Most of my like work was just short stories, like flash fiction, things that I wrote for like creative writing classes. Um, I'm really particular, I guess, in what I use my time on. And
Hmm.
I wanted to start building a world that was entirely original to me and my own design. Um, Even though it was based on heaven and hell, I wanted to put my own twist on things and do
Hmm.
something that I hadn't seen done in any other media. And I think I achieved that. I'm not honestly too sure. I don't read a whole lot of heaven and hell fiction these days,
Right.
so I might have to do a little bit more research if I decide to kind of revive this series. I am a lot better at outlining and conceptualizing.
Mm-hmm.
stories than committing to putting it all down from start to finish on page. Um, as evidenced by my growing list of book ideas, I've got a document that I've been adding to over the years of like, oh, I had this really great story idea for this pair of siblings that encounter this alien, and they end up having to partner with one alien to fight another alien, and like that's how my ideas start, and then they snowball.
Mm-hmm.
And I eventually move on to the outlining process of going basically chapter by chapter of the events of the story. And that's how I would recommend writing. Everybody's got their own sort of process, and if you read a really popular one is Stephen King, of
Mm-hmm.
course, who has his writing how-to book called On Writing, and he basically gives the opposite advice: is like, don't outline a story, just start going, just start writing and see how it develops, and let your mind wander, and details can change. And I mean, that's cool if it works for you. But for me, I needed to know, like, when I sat down to start typing, where the chapter ended or where it
Mm-hmm.
started and where it ended.
Yeah.
And I've often thought about doing like writing tutorial videos or any kind of um, how to for writing. And in fact, one of my best friends and I, we review Animorphs books on our podcast called
Mm-hmm.
Thought Speak. And I would totally recommend going and checking that out if you're interested in a couple of geeky dudes um, diving into and reviewing and summarizing every book in the Animorph series. We started doing this pre-transition for me, and then some 50 episodes in, we killed the show and it went away for a while, and then we revived it after I transitioned.
Nice.
So that's
You had
available
some
to
life
hear.
stuff to sort out.
Yeah, it's really cool. I think it's very meta how there's almost like a story within a story. The story of these hosts who are changing and developing kind of behind the scenes as they talk about this book series that they both love and grew up on.
That's so
Uh,
fun. Do you
so
reread the
we're
books
working.
to do the
They're
episodes?
great books, and we're working on finishing up the series. We've got 4 more to review, and the end of the series is just absolutely fantastic stuff. You can hear that at anchor.fm/thoughtspeakcast, by the way.
Anchor.com cast. Got it.
Anchor.fm.
Oh, you're right, you're right. Of course.
It's actually on my all my links
Oh, perfect.
page. You
Awesome.
go on there.
And
Yeah.
that's been plunked in the chat here regularly, and folks, you can find that also in the show notes. Do you have any other advice you would give to other storytellers about process or how to stay motivated? I know, um, we actually have a writer's corner in our Discord server where they do like little writing sprints. You'll have your prompt for the week, and you can check in the next week, and people can read and review each other's stuff. Have you ever worked in a writing group, or do you have any other habits or practices that you have found really useful that maybe you wish you had known when you started writing?
Yeah, if you're lucky enough to or if you've sought out that sort of community, or have people who are interested in beta reading your work, definitely get as many of those people as you can in your life to kind of bounce works off of.
Mm-hmm.
I would recommend like trading, somebody reads your stuff and you read theirs, and give them advice and notes, and kind of develop a writing partnership like that. That helps immensely. I've typically had probably two people, 2 or 3 people to kind of read over my work and give me opinions, make small edits, suggestions, things like that. And that stuff really helps immensely. If you can find a writing community or a writer's room, and just crowdsource as many thoughts and feedback as you can on your writing, I think you'll do a lot better than were you to just research it all on your own and try to put something out. I think most of the people who are doing it professionally, they work with editors, and
Mm-hmm.
they probably have a whole team of people that are looking over their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Most of these things that we do, writing or producing, editing, entertainment wise, nobody's really doing it by themselves. Uh, Everyone needs support and the help of a good team behind their backs to be able to put out like the best version of their product, for sure.
Well, there are people from the Transverse who didn't know that you had published books, so now you're going to have a few more book sales, I think.
Oh gosh. I don't widely advertise it, I guess.
Yeah.
I feel weird talking about it, frankly. And I feel so bad because the series currently on book 3 ends on such a huge cliffhanger. I feel like such a bad author for doing that to my readers. Really leaving things off on just a massive, okay, something clearly has to happen to resolve this
Yeah.
kind of thing. And I have every intention of trying to bring some conclusion to the series. This was one that I always frankly wanted to see animated,
Oh, totally.
or as a comic.
Mm-hmm.
You can see the artwork here. Sorry, podcasters, but it's a very anime inspired sort of art style.
Mm-hmm.
And unsurprisingly, I am a huge anime fan, basically lifelong, ever since the old days of Toonami with Dragon Ball Z and Sailor Moon and um, all of those era shows. And even around that time when anime was like really hard to come by, you had to go to the local Suncoast Videos, is where I got mine from, and buy
Mm.
it on VHS tapes. That's how I discovered a lot of like the really good, more classic animes. Like Ranma One Half was
Oh my
huge for
gosh.
me,
Yeah.
especially in the egg cracking realm, because it's about a boy who turns into a girl. And
Yeah. I
that one was
I
just
think I owned a
monumental.
bunch of that manga as a young person. I think I then at some point in my life it got donated to my small town's public library. So I like to
Oh.
imagine there's little queer kids in that little tiny town I grew up who are reading that in the library and going, "Wow, it's possible to be trans."
All you need is a cursed spring to bathe in, and you got it.
Yeah. Didn't Ranma switch every time they got wet with
Yes.
water?
Yep.
But did it happen when they drank water? Or only if it was
Uh,
like dumped on their head or something else?
that might have been a plot point that wasn't really properly addressed, because
Yeah.
it was cold water that turned
Right.
him into her, and then
Right.
hot water turned her into him.
I see.
So,
But what if you're drinking soup or iced tea? Then what happens?
right, the little plot details we need to know.
We need to know. We need to know. Do you have any tips for avoiding plot holes as a writer?
Oh God. Wow. You know,
Asking the hard
that that's
questions.
that's where outlining really comes in handy, I feel like, because there are times where I was writing certain plot elements that in my mind I was like, okay, well, clearly this will happen. Um, and then maybe I'm like writing it, or writing just the outline of it, but I start to think like, why would that happen? Because the character should have this knowledge, or the character wouldn't react that way, or
Mm-hmm.
like, you know those are details that you really need to put into the forethought before you start writing things. That is the worst. I feel like when you're so proud of something and then somebody immediately is just like, why would that happen?
Mm-hmm.
They don't know that, or whatever, whatever the detail is. And
Yeah.
it seems so obvious at the time where you're
Yeah.
like, of course.
Have I asked you yet what series you feel like impacted your life the most? I don't know if it was Animorphs or Ranma One Half or some other uh, series, but what, like, can you tell us about some of the media that's had the biggest impact on you?
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of that stuff was very formative in my younger years. Just those animes.
Mm-hmm.
Pokemon was huge for me. I was one of the initial Pokemon fans, like back in 98, 97, 98, when it first hit American shores. And it was not cool or fashionable to be a Pokemon fan in those days.
It was not.
Nowadays, it's so mainstream and it's so cool. And I've been getting back into Pokemon through my kids, and it's
I love
great.
that. Okay, red
But
version or blue version?
not the games, just the animes.
All right.
I started on both red and blue. Yes, I was the
You
kid
got both.
whose parents bought me both. Yeah.
Wow.
I
I
had
got
to
red
be able
version
to
and
get
my
all the
sister got
Pokemon and
blue
be able to
version.
trade them to myself.
Exactly. We had to go to Toys R Us at like 9 in the morning on a Saturday with our Game Boy Colors and our links so we could trade the other kids at the Toys R Us.
Oh yeah.
One of them tried to
Um,
trade me a glitched Mew one time. I don't remember if it worked, but I remember trying and how cool and like, oh no, we're doing secret sneaky things.
I even had the Game Boy. I think it was a Game Shark, is what it
Oh
was
yeah,
called.
yeah, yeah,
That you could hack the cartridge basically
yeah.
and get Mew, or you could encounter any Pokemon you wanted.
Oh my gosh.
Um, so I was a little hacker back then for sure.
I love that.
Um, as far as like series that have impacted me,
Mm-hmm.
um, it was definitely Animorphs from a very early age, and then I got into um, the big three from Shonen Jump a long time ago. Were Bleach, Naruto, and One Piece,
Mm-hmm.
and two of those kind of fizzled out and faded away. I mean, Naruto's huge nowadays, but
Yeah,
Bleach is like, if anybody remembers that,
I remember
it's not
Bleach.
exactly fondly. But
Yeah.
um, One Piece has been pretty much a central figure throughout my life. Just since I started reading it online back in 99 or 2000, back
Nice.
when all you could only find it on, scan websites. Um, and that's why if you see my tattoos here, both of these are One Piece things, as well as my
Yeah, your skull and crossbones with the straw
Roger
hat.
there. And
I
I
love
plan on
that.
adding more. This is going to be a whole One Piece arm. Uh, so on the surface, One Piece looks like a very silly, cartoony pirate adventure.
Hmm.
And that's pretty accurate, actually. But it is also far more than that. It is basically a character study of over 1,000 characters.
Yeah, that's
these
so wild.
these characters are so well written because the author puts so much thought into the series, and he's been going consistently writing it now for over 20 years.
That's amazing.
It's been a fixture in my life
Yeah,
since 2000.
yeah,
So over 20 years I've been reading it. It's been like the thing that I've looked forward to every week
wow,
consistently.
that's
And
amazing.
as the characters are changing and growing, so am I. Um, there's a lot of different character backstories that kind of resonate with me. Um, One of the characters has this whole story about basically dealing with loneliness.
Hmm.
They were adrift on a ship, totally alone by themselves for something like 50 or 60 years of
Wow,
solitude.
that's a long time.
And um, in the early stages of my divorce and transition, when I was sitting here in my home, totally alone, I didn't really have any of the friendships that I had previously.
Hmm.
I Most of my family was kind of in a weird place for talking to me, and um, I just would think about like this character and the loneliness that they dealt with and how they got out of it with friendship and finding their friends and their crew. um and it seems silly, I guess, but little things like that keep me motivated. And there are dozens more examples of characters from One Piece that I find motivating and inspiring. um, and I didn't prepare any examples here because I didn't want to go too far into depth with it, but I will absolutely say that One Piece is a show that appears very daunting because there's over 1,000 episodes and chapters at this point. So
Nice.
it seems like it's one that's going to be hard to get into, but once you start watching it, it's like you're funneled through. You want more. And
Yeah.
the recurring joke is that fans of the show, or people on the outside think there's too many episodes, but the fans on the inside know that there's not enough.
Yeah. Never enough.
Definitely. So the day the manga is still going, right? It's still being written and the anime is still being produced.
I love that.
Um, but it is slated to end within the next 5 years.
Oh no.
And the day that it does end, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what
Just
I'm going to
start over
have to
from the
look forward
beginning
to.
and see what the details you missed the first time.
I want to get a big group watch going at some point
Oh my
for
gosh.
all of my friends who are
Well,
not inducted into it yet.
I bet if you talk to Danny about having a One Piece watch party regularly in the Transverse server, you could get something going.
It's an idea
Saturday
that's
morning
already in the
cartoons
works.
with Mimi.
It's an idea that is already in the works. Let
I
me
love
tell you
it.
that.
I
Yeah.
love it. Pajama party anime time
We'll
with
we'll,
all
we'll
your
have,
trans pals.
all kinds of series watch nights.
It's so good. I love that. Well, there's plenty of more questions that I can ask you about writing. However, I want to make sure we have time to talk a little bit about the transverse as well before we wrap our episode today. So, um, we've talked about the transverse a couple of times on the show before, and I will still let you answer the question: what is the transverse for those who haven't heard any of those other episodes, or it's also just fun to hear different people's answers about the same thing and compare notes about what people think it is.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm sure it's different things to different people. And I think my default answer is always going to be that the transverse is an online community, a support community, perhaps, for all identities. Essentially, it's not just transgender identities, but we are welcoming of pretty much anywhere on the LGBTQIA, POC, all the letters. Everybody's welcome there. And um, in particular, it is also a Discord community, but it is a Twitch channel and a YouTube channel, and that is the whole media side of things, which I am super stoked to be having a heavy hand in these days as the director of that media. And a big, like, development in my life and in my transition was finding this excellent community
Mm-hmm.
and then being welcomed in and um, ushered in by Emily, who's watching, and Danny. We've been working very closely over the last couple of months this year to build out our Twitch portfolio and our YouTube channel. and we want to start producing original shows that are have a trans slant to them. They're either going to be, trans creators making cool shows. We've got a couple of different live shows right now currently on Twitch, and we're going to be rolling out some additional shows that are brand new specifically for our YouTube channel. And
Cool.
I would love it if anybody watching this would just go subscribe to the Transverse on YouTube, because that's how you're going to get all of our latest content when it drops eventually later this summer here.
That's so awesome. And turn the bell on too so that you get those notifications on your phone, everybody. Um, so if you're listening to the show later, obviously all of these links are definitely going to be in the show notes. So you talked about what is transverse. So you're the director of media, right?
Totally.
Are there things about your role that you're really looking forward to, or that you feel like you're uniquely poised to do as someone with the background that you have, or things you've studied, things like that?
Yeah, did I talk about my background at all? I haven't really.
You talked
I
about
have
writing, you haven't talked about any degrees or anything.
Cool. Okay, so yeah, let's preface that by saying that I have been working in and out of the entertainment industry for the past decade or so. I went to college back in 2005 for broadcast television, which covered pretty much everything from like live news production to advertising and commercials, just TV, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was really cool. It was fun, but news wasn't exactly where I saw myself ending up.
Right.
So I took my education further, and I went to Full Sail University down in Orlando, and that's a film school. So I got my bachelor's degree in film. And uh, after graduating in 2009, I moved back to Minnesota. And I've been working in the entertainment media industry kind of intermittently since then. I have been I've worked at a news station, one of the largest news stations here in Minnesota, for a number of years, doing the morning news show from like
Oof.
4 a.m. until 1 in the afternoon.
No wonder you drink so much coffee.
That is where the love of coffee started, definitely. Um, and after doing that, I worked for a local city here. They had a public access TV channel station, and I covered all their like sporting events and their city hall meetings. They had a really nice studio that we would shoot programming in, and I edited commercials and stuff for the city as well. And
Mm-hmm.
I ended up winning some award for a couple of the commercials that I made back in like 2015, 2016, um, which is kind of cool. The commercials aren't anything fantastic, and I didn't enter them in this Northern Lights Awards thing. My boss did,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm very thankful that he did. And after the TV stuff, this was when I was getting into my serious relationship that became a marriage,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to take a little bit of time off to do less the production stuff, the news work. All of that stuff is very time consuming.
Yeah.
Long hours, very erratic schedules, working weekends, things like that, and stuff that a partner doesn't necessarily enjoy
Right.
about your job.
Mm-hmm.
So I took a year off to start writing my Devil Ash books and just kind of figure things out. And then I ended up doing a complete career change into teaching.
Hmm.
And I
Another early
became
morning
a,
job.
yeah, well, at least I got I got on the school calendar schedule, which,
Hmm.
at least provides for holidays and stuff and
Yeah.
consistent weekends and all that.
Hmm.
But I spent the next 5 years doing various teaching jobs. I was at all grade levels. I worked with, preschool kids all the way up to high school kids.
Hmm.
I was a paraprofessional working with developmentally disabled kids, um, pretty much every end of the autism spectrum, and I did like summer care programs where I literally got paid to go on field trips and supervise kids to like theme parks, water parks, movie theaters. Um, Back in, I think it was 2015, the summer of 2015, when Pokemon Go came out, when that
Hmm.
first launched, I got paid to just walk the kids around the town square that was adjacent to our high school and
Ah,
and play Pokemon Go
that's
for hours.
amazing.
It
Oh my
was it
gosh.
was yeah.
Do you have a
I
favorite
can't
Pokemon in
believe the things
Pokemon
I
Go
got
that you
paid for.
caught?
What's that?
Do you have a favorite Pokemon in Pokemon Go that you've caught?
So I haven't touched Pokemon Go in the last year or two. Um, but I do have a shiny collection. I know that I have at
Nice.
least 20 shinies.
That's
So
so exciting.
that's probably my pride and joy for that.
Well, as you know, Pokemon is one of my special interests,
Oh heck
and
yeah.
my favorite Pokemon that I've caught in Pokemon Go is a shiny, perfect IV Blastoise that's an event Pokemon wearing sunglasses.
Oh, that's cool.
It's so cool.
I think I do. I have a okay, yeah. I do have a favorite shiny then. It is a shiny Alolan Raichu.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. And I haven't been keeping up on Pokemon Go just over the years. I got really into there's like a mobile Yu-Gi-Oh game.
Mm-hmm.
Yu-Gi-Oh was another huge franchise for me growing up, right alongside Pokemon, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And I always loved collecting Yu-Gi-Oh cards as well as Pokemon cards. I've got a fantastic collection of Pokemon cards that I want to make a YouTube video about someday. And feature that on my channel because I've
I love
got the
that.
entire base set collection of
Oh, that's
cards.
cool.
Mm-hmm.
I did a stream once where I just sat and pulled Pokemon memorabilia out of my bin of Pokemon things for like 3 hours, and we didn't get through all of it. I was like, well,
Oh, nice.
congrats on your community award. Like, everybody was like, here's channel points for this thing. And I was like, I can't believe you collectively paid like 20 or 50,000 channel points for me to sit here and pull Pokemon cards out at you. But okay.
We need to do a follow-up stream someday. I would love to come back on and just start pulling random things off my shelf and showing them because we could be here for over an hour
We could
for
have
me to show
the
you my
Meowster and
stuff.
Mimi info dump about Pokemon stream.
Yes.
Give everybody something to spend all their channel points on.
That would be a delight
That would be
for
so
sure.
fun. Oh my god. So Nini Niles in the chat is saying, "Let's see the nerd shelf."
Oh,
You
oh
want to show us
no,
the
you
nerd
you really
shelf?
want to? I will have to crack the illusion here
Yes, that's
of
fine.
lovely non-binariness that you got here. But 1 second, and please enjoy my butt.
Shelfie stream. That's so fun. I love that you wrote that.
And
So,
then I don't get it in the frame. There we go. There we go.
for those listening to this later, behind Mimi, there is a very cute dog whose name I've forgotten or I didn't get told. What's the dog's name?
Charlie.
Charlie. That's right. You totally told me Charlie's name. What is Charlie's breed? How would you describe this dog?
He's a Pomeranian Yorkie.
Oh my gosh. I love the curly tail.
Look over here,
Such a
bud.
cute dog.
he's very old, and
Yeah.
in all honesty, probably not long for this world.
Well, Charlie is
That's
treasured
that's
for today.
that's it's a sad detail, but I actually had two dogs, and my other dog passed away at the start of this year, and it was very
Mm,
unexpected and very tragic.
hmm.
And I won't go into detail there, but yeah, I've been a long time. This guy was he went to college with me
Wow.
back in 2008
Amazing.
is when I got him.
Yeah.
Um, so hey, you want to come up here? Oh, you're too old.
It's okay.
Can't make the jump onto my
It's
lap anymore.
okay. Um,
But behind me, you can see a couple of the nerd details. I
yeah.
got the lovely Pokemon posters back there in the corner.
Hmm.
And these are all original posters, by the way, from the early 2000s.
Yeah, like when they
Um,
came out.
the one hanging on the door
Hmm.
is actually one that came in a strategy guide for one of the games, like Pokemon Red or Yellow.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that
And
they're in
then
this
I've
good of a
got
condition too, this many years later.
I've, I take good care of my stuff. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, and is that a bunch of manga on that shelf or are those anime box sets?
So it's actually a lot of different stuff, but it is anime, manga, and then book series.
Hmm. Where's
Um,
One Piece?
so I actually have an entire shelf dedicated to One Piece that is downstairs in my living room.
Amazing.
I need to work on the display up here in my
Oh, it's totally
office,
fine.
but this is gonna be like Pokemon territory, pretty much.
I like it. That's where all the Pokepals live.
Mhm, totally.
Um, so why would you say the transverse is meaningful to you? What's meaningful about the transverse for you personally?
Oh yeah. Well, the biggest thing at the start of my transition, pre-transition, whatever, is just that I didn't have any sort of community. I didn't know anybody who was like me. I didn't have people in my life that, knew a damn thing about gender or sexuality or any of that. And that was always kind of one of my biggest regrets, was in coming out. Before coming out, I had nobody to talk to about this stuff. um, and I always knew that theoretically there were communities out there. There were people that were like me. I didn't really know how to find them. I didn't know how to kind of bridge this gap. And one of the early kind of communities for trans association that I found was through Instagram.
Mhm.
And I really don't want to promote Instagram too much. I have very mixed to negative feelings about Instagram now these days. Um, but if you find an online community of people that are like you, that's better than not having one.
Yeah.
And Instagram was helpful in meeting people. And in particularly, I met Emily through Instagram.
Oh, cool. That's
And
awesome.
Emily is, of course, the head honcho at the Transverse, and the one who brought me kind of onto the team and into the fold and introduced me to just so many lovely people, that are all very like-minded. And I really found my community through the Transverse. And that is, my chosen community, my found family, the people that I will continue to associate from now on. And I couldn't be happier. I'm so much more well adjusted after um, finding people that sort of validated me, and have given me what I needed socially that I was
Hmm.
missing throughout my entire life.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a community like that, um, try the Transverse, try some other places, try Meowster's Clouder on Discord. There's there are so many LGBTQ or trans specific
Hmm.
support communities now. I would have never suspected that all of this stuff is ready and waiting for you online. You just kind of need to know where to find it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's you know, I've noticed there are like slight differences between the demographics between our two Discord servers. And you can totally correct me if I'm wrong, but my impression is that the transverse tends to be trans femme heavy and is maybe a mix of Gen X and millennials. And then Meowster's Clouder tends to be non binary heavy and a little extra spicy side of trans mask people with a mix of millennials and Gen Z or Zoomers. It's like slightly younger, slightly more non-binary. That's just my impression. I don't know if that's true. But I love both of our communities, and I catch Pokemon in the Pokemon channels in both of our communities.
Oh, awesome, awesome. Yeah,
It's so
I
fun.
don't, I don't, I don't know the demographics, frankly. I haven't studied the data. That sounds pretty accurate, though, and I would say that I think we need each other. We could use each other so much,
Yeah,
because yeah, it's great to have people that are like you, but you also want to diversify and not limit yourself necessarily
yeah,
to the whatever you call them, the bubbles,
yeah.
um,
And
that
like,
that are too
the
similar.
transverse totally still has non-binary and transmasculine people, and Meowster's Clatter also has plenty of lovely trans femme people. So it's not exclusively just those demographics, but I've
Oh yeah.
noticed just like a slight trend in those directions. Like I was in my, I think I might have told this story once on the show before, but I was in a doctor's office waiting to be seen for something to do with HRT for me, and I saw another trans person in the lobby, and I clocked this person as like trans femme 40 something, and I was like, let me tell you about the transverse. Like he didn't even mention any of my content stuff that I do because I was like, I think the transverse is going to be a really good fit for this person.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
That's so
I have
cool to
no idea
hear.
if they ever join the server, but yeah, my instinct was to tell them about the transverse with my 30 to 60 seconds before I get called back for my appointment time.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah.
If I were out there in the wild interacting with live humans, I would be more inclined to kind of promote ourselves out too. Here's a funny story. I live in a very sort of smallish town that's adjacent to the big cities here.
Mm.
Um, but I have pride flags flying in my front windows. I've got
Nice.
a rainbow, a trans, and a pansexual flag flying in my windows very prominently that face the street. And one random day, I get a knock on my door and open it up, and it's this very young, like teenage girl, preteen girl maybe, and she introduces herself. And just says, she saw my flags and wanted to stop by and say hi because she was just coming out as queer, as lesbian, and her family was unsupportive, and
Mm.
just kind of told me her story, and I was very unexpected. It's very supportive. I was like, oh, I'm an ally, absolutely, and you can come back and talk to me anytime you want. My name is Michelle, and I was just very, very friendly to her. And she did eventually come back once for just a random chit chat. And it's so cool. You put yourself out there as an ally, and you will eventually attract people, those who may need an ally or need some kind of help. And that's exactly why I'm so forward facing and upfront about everything. I'm always going to identify as trans and non-binary, and not necessarily try to blend in, or disappear into the. I've been told I pass, and I don't put a whole lot of stock in passing or not these days, but I mean it's pretty cool, I guess. But that's
Hmm.
like, even if I pass, I'm still going to be an ally and upfront about
Yeah.
the fact that I'm transgender.
Just because you
Like,
pass, you're not going to go stealth.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Stealth. That's the term. I am out and visible, and I want to help people.
Hmm.
You don't necessarily help people by keeping your details private.
Right. Yeah. Well, we just have two sort of wrapping up questions we like to ask all of our talk show guests.
Awesome.
Um, so the first one is, can you share an experience with gender euphoria?
Yeah, yeah, totally, 100%. The things that make me feel euphoric are, um, compliments are nice. Since transitioning, I have gotten compliments that I never really anticipated ever
Mm,
being told in my life, like the appearance compliments, like you're beautiful, you're gorgeous, you're pretty, like those words that I had never previously attributed to myself.
mm-hmm,
It's super affirming to hear others saying that, and I've gotten enough of that to the point where those surface level appearance compliments don't necessarily do it for me anymore.
mm-hmm,
I want to hear, the deeper kind of compliments about how I make you feel, or an attribute of mine that you like.
mm-hmm,
That's the real affirming thing for me, and it's definitely been just being able to be out in public and interact with the world and be treated as Michelle.
mm-hmm,
That is hands down the most affirming thing for me.
mm-hmm.
I don't feel like I'm acting anymore. I feel like I'm just being
Yeah,
myself.
yeah, yeah,
And that's the greatest thing, is to be
yeah,
able to be yourself all the time in public, not worry what others are thinking, or, putting on appearances, that kind of thing.
mm-hmm, yeah.
I get
Well,
off on being myself.
that's so great. I love that. I can say that I regularly leave conversations with you with a smile on my face. And I love your enthusiasm, and I feel like you are very much like a yes and kind of person. Like in a creative process, it's like you take the rules of improv seriously, and so you're like yes, and this other idea too, and this other idea, and so it's like there's not shutting each other down and a bunch of no's and a bunch of like meh, they didn't like my idea. It's like very uh, rich, like nutrient rich. It feels it's great. It's great to be in a creative process with you. I think it's awesome.
I love to encourage creativity and growth, and don't stifle people's ideas, or who they are, or what they want to do.
Hmm.
I think when you collaborate and work together, and you both kind of attribute or add to something, it really makes a fine blend that you wouldn't have gotten before, if one person is kind of putting themselves above the other,
Mm-hmm.
and telling them, what to do necessarily.
Yeah,
So thank you. That's an awesome compliment. I really like that.
you're welcome. So my final question for you today is, what would you like to make sure folks know about your perspective on gender and non-binary or trans issues?
What do I want people to know? I guess that everyone is entitled to their identity the way they want to do it. And identity is all of these wonderful things that compose a person. It's not limited strictly to gender or social status or sexuality or anything like that. We're all like a big, bucket of different paint colors, and we're mixing it together. I love analogies, frankly. I think individuality is one of the most important experiences of being human,
Mm-hmm.
and if you're trying to conform, you're losing yourself.
Yeah.
And that's why I try my hardest to never conform. I always want to be authentic and give you my real self.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I feel so happy after transitioning and just opening up and being honest, that I have nothing to hide anymore. I'm really not trying to hide things with my show, More Than Mimi.
Yeah.
Absolutely listen to that sometime, and you'll maybe get a sense of what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Just put yourself out there, tell the truth, be real. And I think good things will come your way, more so than if you're trying to fit yourself into a little identity box
Yeah.
that, is not the right size or shape for you.
Yeah, I love that authenticity. I mean, you experienced this when we did our pre-show, but one of the things that I invite my guests to do is don't mask. Like, if you have a stim that you like to do, I hold up my little stim toy that I play with, and I'm like, hey, if you've got a thing you like to do, you can do the thing. It's okay. You want to show us your pen flip? Ooh, fidget
Well,
spinners.
I got this one on hand. That's
It's
my
so
quiet
good.
one. But yeah, no, normally I'm over here doing this thing. Oops, sorry.
It's such a good flip. It's so
Ah,
fancy. It's so
it doesn't
fancy.
always work out the way I want it to, but yeah.
Yeah.
But fun fact, by the way, this is a very specific pen that I bought for myself back in 8th grade. And I have carried these style of pens with me since then in my
Man.
pocket or my purse.
So you've been
It's
practicing your
it's
pen flip since middle school.
yes, exactly. It's definitely an OCD thing, which I didn't really get the time to go into here. But OCD was another huge thing that really defined my life and my youth. And
Mm,
I could talk extensively on good mental health and OCD as well,
hmm.
but I won't get into any of that currently.
Yeah.
It just helps me think, really.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Totally. Well, before I do our sort of cross promo and wrap ups, is there anything else you want to make sure you say today? Anything that I missed or didn't ask you that you want to make sure you shared?
Yeah. You know, being a part of the trans community is wonderful. It's been life changing for me. I've found like my community, my friends, my family, and all of that stuff is great. It's also very difficult. It's very challenging. It's very stressful.
Meowdy.
And once you start involving yourself in this community, you realize that not everybody has it so easy.
Hmm.
Not everybody is having a great time,
Hmm.
and people are constantly harassed, people are under attack, people have mental health problems. And a lot of my friends, a lot of the people that I've come to care for and love are struggling, and I don't like to see that.
Yeah.
I've got friends who struggle daily with their mental health and their various social situations, their health problems. um, and it's really hard for me to address that with them. And whenever I get really depressed and in a bad state, I just remember that I'm doing all of this because I want to be a really positive figure and help others. And I try not to let myself slide too far down into the depths of depression and despair, because I still think that I have it better than some others. And anything I can do to help my friends, the people that I don't even know, that's what this is really all about for
Hmm.
me. Just being like that positive figure. I want to put more positivity and hope into this world that is so hard and depressing and troubling for us. The attacks keep coming, and the only way that we're really going to adequately defend ourselves from all of that is by kind of banding together. And when some of us are having our low points, we need to have others that are on the high end of it, that are willing to reach down and pull our struggling brothers and sisters up.
Hmm.
And so that's the role I've taken for myself. That's what I hope to do.
Well, it has been such a delight to have you on the show, Mimi. I appreciate your time and your energy and your stories. I love how authentic you are throughout your life. And yeah, this isn't our last conversation. We'll have so many more, and I look forward to the next one.
Thank
Um,
you so much. Yeah, you too.
so, friends, there's a lot of ways that you can interact with the content and the things that Mimi is up to. Um, there is allmylinks.com/MoreThanMimi, where a bunch of them are piled together. You can also catch a lot of the content that Mimi is producing in the background over at thetransverse.net/about the transverse is a great place to find a bunch of links. There's also the More Than Mimi visual podcast, which the link for that will be in the show notes. There's the Devil Ash book series, which you can find on Amazon, and the Thought Speak podcast that Mimi produces with her friend. Next week's guest will be Brooke West. We're bringing Brooke back to talk about queer yoga therapy for gender dysphoria. So we had so much fun talking about yoga about a month ago. We're going to do it some more. And Genderful would like to thank our guest for being on this podcast. Please feel free to join us live on Twitch on Mondays, check out the replays on YouTube on Fridays, and keep an eye on your favorite podcasting platforms for edited audio-only versions. As Neferkitty likes to say, trans rights are human rights. That's right.